Hi there, everybody. It's me, Patricia Windrow at the Cable Easel. This is a program which you may know is devoted to painting and drawing from life. And recently, we've been doing many local scenes. It seems to be very nice for people to be able to recognize or to know that what I'm doing is in this viewing area. So we go out, we shoot a scene, and we bring it back and project it on the monitor in the studio, and that's what I work from, which is the closest you can get to being outside without being outside. Well, today, I'm going to do a study which is going to be, well, it's interesting to me because Long Island is an extremely flat place. I think everybody knows that. But I have found a place that looks like the mountains. And I shall tell you where it is a little bit later, but I think that when you see what is on the screen there, you will agree that that is almost Western in its look. And I have moved to Virginia recently, and therefore mountains to me have become extremely interesting things to paint. But the local area here only affords me one mountain, and here it is. I'm going to lay it out, and as I talk about it, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing and where you can find this place. It's not far, and it is interesting because it's such a far cry from what we're used to. Long Island beach scenes and great flat areas in the center of the island as well as on the South Shore. But here we have a scene that I'm going to lay out this way. And I always like to tell you about layout and plan, because you really can't do anything unless you have a plan. The plan, of course, is to find the horizon line. If the horizon line is a mountain, that's the one that you put in first. I use a very fine brush, which is called a striping brush, and I reduce the paint to watery consistencies, and it's what I call dirty turpentine or colored turpentine. Now, there is one part of this horizon line that I am sketching in, and anything that to do with painting has got to have a plan. You absolutely must lay it out. The other shows that tell you can just start applying paint, that's not my way of doing it. You have to put the plan. Well, here we have one line, and we have two lines. We've already got a three-line composition here, and here is the third one. Now, this looks obviously as if it is a scene somewhere. This is sky, as far as we can tell, and this is the land and the landmass. There is, of course, the foreground. The foreground has another nice angle to it. And then we have the verticals, which never change. They are always vertical, at least if the tree is vertical, so the verticals are true and plumb. Now, I'm going to lay the tree out here. I'll paint over this later, but I want you to see how this plan is taken in hand, because going out and painting from life is a very perplexing thing for a lot of people. They say it's just too much going on, it's too complicated. Well, I want to show you how you can reduce it down to being less complicated. Let me take the middle of this out here, which will show you that now suddenly the tree is in the front, is in front of this of this hill arrangement in the back. That's how you would lay it out. You don't lay the tree out first. You put the furthest line in first, exactly the same as when you apply the color. There is another one here. This scene was selected. I went out with young Jeannie Perazzo today, and I selected this one because of many elements. One of them is that there was a fat tree and a skinny tree. Good composition. It makes for interest, something to be thought of when you're looking for things to paint. There there are no rules, but there has to be some kind of an instinct working about the scene to choose. Now, as you can see, I've taken the layout of the hills away from behind that tree, and this is merely a demonstration to show you how you are able to find your way into a landscape. The other part, now there are very few lines here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 lines, and you have a composition already. However, over here there is a display of evergreens. Now I'm going to put those in just very, very sketchily, because I don't want to put too much paint on the canvas, because I'm going to put some pale blue sky on there, and I don't want it to pick up the pale blue. But this is approximately where where those trees go on the right side of the picture. And then there is a lovely, very obstinate and very cooperative forsythia bush right over here in the right side of the canvas, which is going to give some color to an otherwise somewhat monotone composition. I mean color scheme. So here we have the way one would lay this out. Now, I've talked many times about the business of putting color on quickly, because if you work from life outside in the wild, you have to move according to the time. And if you can work quickly, you will solve many, many problems about getting something pretty well accomplished before the sun changes. You really can't paint more than 4 hours at a time. If you get there at 11 in the morning, the chances are by 2 it's over. There's no point in 2 or 3 at the very latest. So and the afternoon, it becomes even less amount of time, because the sun somehow goes down faster later in the afternoon than it does when it climbs into the sky. So I'm going to show you that the quicker you apply the paint, the quicker you can get to painting the composition from life. I'm not pretending, but I'm telling you that when I'm out there in the wild, as it were, I'm conscious of the fact that time is of the essence. Now, I'm mixing right here on the canvas. Another reason for that is that I don't like to carry too much equipment. It's too heavy. So you can minimize the amount of stuff that you have to carry to a distant spot, or to a spot far away from the car. And so I don't carry a palette. I mix it right here on the canvas. I'm using a canvas board, something that people question me about many times. Canvas board is what I use for demonstrations. For what I would call saleable paintings or classic work, I use stretched canvas. But the use of these canvas boards is extremely good for me. They are inexpensive. They're inexpensive for you to consider as you go out to get supplies. And people who are beginning should not spend a tremendous amount of money on supplies in the beginning. The only thing that I think one should spend money on is brushes. Brushes are the things that make the difference. And of course, a good quality palette knife such as I have here. While I've been talking to you, I've been able to put the ground sky color on here rather quickly, which is exactly the way I would do it out there without the dictates of a television program getting in the way. This is the way I would proceed outside to get all this on before time flies. And it does. When you're out there, there is a tremendous amount of pressure on you to move fast. So here we have the application of a single color. Let me also point out that when you do palette knife painting, the color should be all the same. Do not ever rely upon the accidental especially when you want something absolutely clean and absolutely pure in the way of color. Do not apply it until it is thoroughly mixed to the tone that you want. So, and I have run out of it here, so I'm going to add just a little bit more, mix it right up here. It was a touch of cerulean blue and a touch of ultramarine blue mixed together. I hope that I can reach it rather well. Yes, there we go. It's very little color. I like limited palette compositions. I think that tremendous amounts of color can be reserved for very complicated compositions, but for the most part I think that landscapes are much more easy to live with in one's home with limited color schemes. Sunsets are okay, like the one up on the wall here. That's fine, it's very dramatic, but it's less easy to live with than a composition that has subdued tones, such as the one over here, which is the marshes on the South Shore. Well, I have here the beginnings of a background, which is what the sky is. I'm going to give a little bit of smoothing to it because this is going to be a brush painting. It is not going to be completely palette knife, so I'm going to get rid of a little bit of the bumpy parts that a palette knife puts on, and just give it a smoother brush surface upon which to do what is going to turn out to be extremely intricate and very delicate lines of branches, twigs, and so on. Because the monitor tells you that the scene that we're looking at tells you that there are a tremendous amount of unbudded trees out there. The only things that really seem to be in bloom are the grasses in the foreground, and the forsythia in the foreground, and the pine trees in the back. The rest of them are trees that all still have a lot of work to do before they get green. So I'm going to now use my brush and start to work on the area that is in the distance, and that happens to be what I call probably the only area of Long Island that looks like it is a mountain. Actually, what it is something of an embarrassment. It is a garbage pile. This is the landfill trash heap on Blydenburg Road in Hauppauge. Looking at it this way, it's quite wonderful to look at. However, we all know what it's made of. And what it's made of is all our stuff. Say what you will, that's the way it is. And I kind of chose it because I was interested in the fact that it has such an extraordinary look that is not Long Islandish at all, and yet it is right here, and guess who made it? Not nature and not the great upheavals of the Rockies, but we made it. We made this mountain, and we're still making it. There is some talk somewhere along the line that this is going to be disbanded and closed, and of course the sooner the better. However, that doesn't solve the problem of all the stuff that we make and all the stuff that we have to get rid of. So I thought that this would be an opportunity to talk about the need to think about how one uses material and how one disposes of it. It's become a tremendous issue. It's very environmentally sensitive, and it's also an enormous problem for Long Islanders because there's just so many places you can put this stuff. However, as I'm painting this, I can also play the advocate of recycling, which I find an awful lot of people do not do, and which is probably attributable to a strange human failing, and that is just being lazy about it. It's got nothing to do with embarrassment from your neighbors or anything, or that somebody is watching you separate garbage. It's just that it's boring. It's boring, but it's necessary. And if anybody can overcome the problem of its being boring, then we can do it, and we can do it to tremendous effect. Because if we don't, guess what? That house that you have signed away 30 years of your life to pay for is not going to have water coming out of the faucet to drink. You're going to be buying little gallons of bottled water, and you will not drink the water in your house. So it is all up to us folks to take care of this problem. It's not the government, and it's not the politicians, and it's not the people who pick up the trash in a truck and bring it to a landfill. It's us. It's us'n. As Pogo says, we are all the assassins. The killers is us. And so I think that it's a good point to make, and I also think that it's interesting to see how it changes the landscape. How we, the other part about this is that whatever elevation you see here, there is the same size hole in the ground, the same height, but it's the other way. It goes down. It's a mountain of air going down. So if you ever were to drive into this landfill area, you would see a cliff and look over the cliff, and there is a hole as deep as this mountain of sludge is high. That's rather amazing to me. So here we have now three colors. We have a pale blue, which is an early spring sky, virtually no clouds. I mean, actually, there are no clouds at all. And it doesn't even turn darker towards the horizon as many times the sky does. It is what you might call a cardboard cutout sky. And the simpler the better. Don't invent it. If the clouds aren't there, don't invent them. If they're there, put them in. Then we have this smoky gray mauve kind of elevation here, which is the sludge color. With a little imagination, you can think maybe it's the Purple Mountain, as in our anthem. Purple Mountain Majesties, but this is Purple Mountain Sludge Hills. So here we have, and then there's this one in the foreground, and this is disturbed earth, which has been put to cover the accumulated trash. So that's the color of this mountain. With imagination, this could be the color of any mountain in the Middle West or in the Far West in the dry season. But it ain't. It's us right here. I'm going to break for just a moment and come back with a nice clean brush and some more information about this rather interesting subject matter which I chose for today. So don't go away. I'll be right back. Well, here we are back again to continue with the part one of this composition of a mountain of sludge. Well, doesn't sound very glamorous, but we're going to try and make it glamorous. We're also going to try and bring home a point, which is, I don't mean to sound preachy, but I think that it concerns all of us, and we may as well become interested in it because it's here to stay. The problem is here to stay. And here we have three nice colors, a rather interesting composition, and a subject matter which is, you know, it's what it is. Now, here, this tan area that I've shown you has got little, well, I mean, imperceptible dots of pale stuff. They're rather pretty. They shine in the sun. It makes you realize that there is texture there on this hill, on this elevation. That there is texture. That little shiny things are being catch light in the sunshine. Actually, what it is cans, pieces of glass, pieces of metal. And whatever dark ones you see are probably things like tires and old bits of beds and springs and things and automotive junk and so on. But I'm painting this just to see whether or not, and if anybody has any reaction to what I'm doing, by all means write to the station. We are always happy to get letters, whether they are pro or con, what happens here. And here is what is happening today, a slight environmental adventure, as you might call it. And I'm going to because it's part one and part two, I'm going to concentrate on the middle ground now and the background and the evergreens. So I'm going to put this thinner tree in. This is almost silhouetted. It's a nice mixture of some ultramarine blue, some Venetian red, and it may be just a little bit too too red at this point, so I'm going to put a little bit more blue in it. And don't even though it appears very dark, I always avoid using black. I do not like to use black. Black is a very dead color. Of course, it's made from charred animal bones, if you can stand that, and that's why it gives it that sort of dead color. And I think that you should avoid that as much as possible. There is a way of being able to make the colors more vibrant, even though they're very dark, and that's to mix very dark opposites. Now, before I put the light side of that tree in, I'm going to be putting in the greens that grow behind it, and those are weeds that seem to be clinging to this fence, which is put up for obvious reasons. It needs to keep the public out. So here I'm leaving the lit side of this tree free of paint, but here are the vines, very roughly interpreted at this point. They're the dark part of this painting. I'm using something called olive green. It comes right in the tube, and they call it olive green. It's a wonderful color to use with outside painting. You really can't miss with olive green, especially mixed with a little purple, and you'll find that it's extremely rich and very vibrant, and all the shadows that you get in dark leafy places are gotten this way. There is, of course, air to be seen through this fence because these are vines. They are not cultivated bushes that have been trimmed. They are wild, and they need to have some little see-through places as well. So here is the interpretive way of little brush strokes, purposefully done, nothing that is just sort of accidental. I like to make sure that I point out to people that when you put a brush on canvas, you should have some purpose and some reason for it, not just to fill a brush full of color and then hit the canvas with it and hope that it looks like a tree. That's not, in my opinion, a fair way to tell you how to paint pictures. It just isn't fair because it doesn't tell you the complete story. So it's these small, deliberate strokes that are going to give you the look that you want, not the strange, tricky ones that sometimes are perpetrated on these programs. I find that all they can do is to confuse the audience, and that's, I believe, what they're doing. Witness the fact that I see in yard sales all over the place between here and Virginia these paintings that are the product of people having attempted to paint the way the art shows do with these great 4-inch wide brushes, and they, of course, they turn out to be unwanted by the people who did them, and they are up for sale in the yard sales. I think that the legacy of that kind of thing is rather sad, but timely, and come along just about the right time, which is now. So here we have this dark sort of see-through fence-like arrangement here because the vines have almost made it a solid fence. In the wintertime, of course, I think these vines are probably not this dense. They probably are more see-through. But at the springtime of year, this is when this is rather pretty. This is beginning to look pretty, even though it is far from pretty. Let me show you some way before your interest lags too much. Here, my ultramarine blue and my Venetian red. Let me show you the way in which I'm going to, over this prepared background, I'm going to put in, with hopefully a very masterful stroke, as I call it, at least one that you can be sure of, and it's the spine or the trunk of one of these pine trees. The brush has barely touched the canvas. I have reduced the paint down to an ink-like consistency, and it is what I do in order to make these fine lines. The brush, the background has dried sufficiently in these few minutes that I've been on the air because I'm using an undercoating white, which is the paint that you should be using when you're doing these studies out of doors. Fast-drying white paint is what you need for the effects that are necessary when you're fooling around with time. And the problem with time, my time is also running out, as I have been told, with hand signals left and right from people that we're running out of time. So I think to stress the problem of time is vital for anybody who is painting, because even when I'm out there in the wild, time is my constant watcher. It sits on my shoulder at all times. So we have here, beginning towards the end of this program, a composition which I have gleaned from a place very nearby, right in the middle of the island here. I'll talk about it more on part 2, but for the most part, this is about how you begin to work a landscape with what appears to be mountains, not the strange mountains that are shown on many other programs that maybe exist and maybe don't exist somewhere in the Rockies, but these are right here to be observed and for you to go out and see if you can't record them yourself. Mountains and elevations against the sky are actually wonderful subjects to paint, and so this is about the closest that I can invite you to do as we live on a very flat place. So for this program, this is just about as far as I think anybody can go. I want you to remember that sometime we have announced before that the Art for Open Lands is going to take place in May, but actually we've changed our minds. It's going to be in June. Well, things came in the way. We could not plan it quickly enough to make it good enough. So that's why it has been postponed until the end of June. And I'll talk to you endlessly about it from now, from this moment on. You will hear about it again and again and again. But it's not May, as I said before. With that note of information, I'm going to close this program. Hope that you tune in on part 2 of this Mountain of Sludge, which I think is not a very pretty name. Maybe in the meantime I'll find a better title for this painting. Maybe when it's finished it will give me an idea for something more poetic. In the meantime, this is Pat Windrow at the Cable Easel. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.